I like to think about it as, in the moment, you give it 100% of everything that you can and be present in that moment. When you're with the family, you're present in that moment. But then afterwards, there's no point in replaying that moment over and over again. Let the moment play out in real time and then leave it there. How's it going, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. My name is Gianluca, aka Dr. Calcagno, and at the time of this recording, I am a first-year family medicine resident working and studying here in Canada. Now, in today's video, we're going to talk about a recent conversation that I had with a medical student. A lot of the videos that I do here on the channel are trying to help students and sharing some experiences that I had. And I think that this one in particular is one that I've wanted to do for a while, but I didn't really have the right opportunity to. I'm going to try my best to use definite language and share a personal experience that I had in the hopes of maybe touching on some really important topics here. And I don't care if you're in medical school or if you're trying to be a nurse or a nurse practitioner or a PA. This, unfortunately, is a situation that affects most of us that are going to end up in a career in medicine. Also, I just quickly want to apologize for the sunglasses. The sun is shining right in my eyes right now. It's Friday night. Just finished a long week worth of work, and now I get the weekend off, so I'm really looking forward to that. But anyways, it was a conversation I had with a student recently, medical student, who was telling me that recently they had experienced their first time using CPR on an actual patient. And for those of you that haven't been in that situation yet, I'll just say from experience that it could definitely be very traumatic. It's not something that is a normal occurrence in daily life, and I don't care how many first aid courses you've been to in the past, it is a totally different experience than learning it. And I myself taught first aid, standard first aid with the Life Saving Society for years. I taught the course, I ran the exams, and I still remember the first time doing CPR for myself. And I'll just say that with this student here, it was interesting to hear things from them, and I've heard similar stories from multiple students now. I think the issue here is that these things need to be talked about, because as a medical student or any student, and what happens is you end up you move away from family and friends to go to school, and you could be in a totally foreign place all by yourself. And it's really nice that a lot of students have this really tightly knit friend group where they could talk about different things. But the fact of the matter is that a lot of times you get so busy doing so much different stuff that it becomes this sort of routine where you're at the hospital and then you're home studying and you're back to the hospital. And I know that as a medical resident, whenever I'm involved in a situation where there is something bad that happens, someone ends up dying, for example, I always end up having some sort of debrief with the medical students, because I remember that it's a traumatic experience and there's nothing worse than going home at the end of a shift, after a long shift, and having all these feelings built up and you weren't able to talk to anyone. So it's why I think it's really important that we do talk about these things. So try and keep it brief, but basically the first time that I remember doing CPR, I remember it very, very clearly. I was on emergency medicine and it was a shift in the middle of the week. Started off like a usual shift. I started that day at 4 o'clock and I was doing the 4 to midnight shift. And the preceptor that I was working with, the emergency doctor I was with that day, had gotten to know me at least a little bit well enough where they trusted me to do a few things by myself when it came to procedures. So I know that at the time, it was mid-afternoon, I was suturing up a patient in one of the rooms that we had off on the side, and it was a pretty intricate suture. I was doing inside of the mouth. I believe they had fallen and cut open their lip in a few other places, but basically I was suturing them up, and then the doctor came to get me and told me that there was a patient on their way. They were VSA. This was in the middle of COVID. VSA means vital signs absent. The paramedics were bringing in someone without vital signs, and we would have to get up, put on all of our COVID gear, and get ready to go and do CPR when they did arrive. So the first thing that happens when you're in a situation like that is that you go into the resuscitation room. You're all gowned up with everything that you need for infection control, and it's very, very busy. So in standard first aid, you learn breaths, you learn compressions, you learn defibrillation and the automated external defibrillator. It's different when you get to ACLS and the in-hospital resuscitation. You need someone to get the medications ready. You need someone to get the lines all connected so the medication could go in intravenously for the most part. And the room is buzzing. There is so much excitement in everyone getting ready for what they're going to do. There's someone that runs the entire code as well, someone to write down what's happening. And then the patient arrives, and it's the transfer from the paramedics to everyone in the resuscitation room. And then it's go, 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 go right from the get-go. The transfer has to be as quick as possible. And as a student that had never done CPR before, I wasn't asked by the doctor if I had ever done this before. And you just expected to go. And I remember that in the time building up to when the patient got there, I was very, very nervous. I didn't know how to feel, even as someone that taught standard first aid, and I knew first aid and I knew ACLS like very, very well at the time, and having reviewed it. I was still nervous because it was the first time really being confronted with a situation like that. But as soon as the patient got there and the team just came together, you kind of just snap into it and you get really drilled in onto exactly what you have to do, especially when there's someone there telling you what to do. You are just 100% focused. And so focused, I would say, that you can't really even take into consideration what's going on exactly. You're just going through the algorithms and you're following the steps because you are trying your best and everything that you can to save this person, or your best attempt at trying to save this person. And it doesn't actually work out like that in a lot of cases. The stats for returning someone to spontaneous circulation after their heart has totally stopped is actually very, very low. But I remember we ran that code for what felt like a very long time, especially considering that their vital signs were already gone. And at the end of it, the doctor ended up calling it and saying that, you know, it's been a long time, we've done everything that we can. And then he turned to everyone in the room and asked if there was any other suggestions for how we could proceed. Ultimately, they had tried everything, and we were unable to bring the patient back. The patient had died. And I didn't really know how to feel after that. It was a really terrible feeling. And you know the stats, you know that this person was coming in, it was rough, but you get involved with it and you're given compressions, and if it's a case that allows for it, the defibrillator, and you're following the steps of the ACLS algorithm, and everyone really is trying their best. I remember everyone in there was really, you are sweating like crazy if you're giving prolonged series of compressions for more than 20 minutes, more than 30 minutes, for example, and everyone's really putting in a lot of energy. And then afterwards, the tone of the room, it's not a happy one. No one in there, it's just a really terrible feeling, I would say, because then you know, number one, that you were unable to bring them back, but number two, that this person had a family, and in a lot of cases the family's right outside, and now you have to go and break that news to them. And sometimes they're there to watch the compressions and the resuscitation efforts, and there's a lot of data that shows that's good for them to be able to see exactly what was being done to try and save their family member. But I can't even imagine what that must be like for people. And I know that afterwards, having to go and break that news to the family was something that I personally was really, really dreading. And the doctor that I was with, it was awesome, amazing. And after it was done, they told me, they said, you know, this one I'll do, and you watch how it's done. I need you to come with me, and we'll explain how the whole breaking bad news process works. And we went, and it was really, it caught me off guard, because I had worked myself up about thinking where this conversation was going to go with this person. But you realize that not everyone reacts to news in the exact same way. And the response that we got from this individual in breaking the bad news that they had lost a loved one was, it wasn't dramatic. It was not what you would see in movies. It was empty, and it was somber, but it wasn't outwardly sad. And that's fine, because everyone's allowed to react to news in a totally different way. We broke the news to them. I went back to the other side, and the doctor walked over to me and said, okay, well, we got another one on the way that we're gonna have to do CPR for. So go and start seeing another patient for 10 minutes because we're super busy. And then when they get here, I'll get one of the nurses to come get you so you could come in and help. And I was just like, what? Like this was the first day that I'd ever done CPR. Now we're gonna have to do 2 back to back and a patient in between. It was terrible. So the second patient that we were doing CPR on, unfortunately, went pretty much exactly like the first patient. It was another really bad case. The chances that we were going to be able to bring them back they were not good going into it. and we kept it going for a long time, multiple rotations. I was sweating, I was tired. You could still remember the sensation on your hands after doing compressions for a long period of time, and what that feels like on the torso that you're compressing on, the person that you're compressing on afterwards. And these are all things that stick with you, I would say. And I know that coming out of that second one, I felt like worse. I felt even worse than the first one. And you could just tell from the room that it was shared. Everyone felt kind of bad after that. And I don't think it's always like that. Obviously, if it was a good outcome, then it's probably a different atmosphere in there. But everyone's going to react to these things differently, and you see that the people that are in there and they're working in these situations time and time again, they have to learn to come up with defense mechanisms for this, right? And you have to adapt to it. But it was the first day, and I felt pretty bad about it. So eventually the doctor went off shift, and I started with another doctor because I was there till midnight. And I never got a formal debrief afterwards from the doctor that I was with. That's my one criticism for them, because they were so great, but they never sat down to talk to me about what happened. We never went over the case. We never went over, you know, explaining with the family what was going on. And I wish we would have. And to anyone watching this that's been in a similar situation, if it's possible and when it's your turn, just ask someone for an official debrief, because you know, I bet you that doctor was just so busy, and they probably would have if I would have asked them for one. So it was towards the end of the shift at this point. It was like 11 o'clock at night, and this is hours after it had happened, but it was still weighing on me so heavily that at one point it was me and one of the senior nurses that were there, and they had been involved in the code. They were giving compressions right alongside everyone else. And listen, I was a relatively young kid coming into this situation. This nurse had been there for more than 30 years, so they've seen some stuff, right? The head ER nurses have seen and done some stuff that is just on a different level, right? And I asked her, because it was just me and her towards the end, and I said, hey, what do you do? Like, does this get easier? And what do you do to get through this? And she said, yes and no. It doesn't weigh so heavily on you after a while, but the feeling never really 100% goes away. You just more or less get used to it. And I think that's a sad reality of the things that we end up doing. But what's important is that you try your best 100% of the time, and that's the takeaway. And that's what I could say I observed that day. Everyone in there was giving it 100% of their effort. But the next step was for me to go home after that. And in the time since then, I've been involved in more codes, some happy and some not so happy in the end. And that's where we're going to conclude this video for today, in the strategies and the things that I hope other medical students, nursing students, all the other students, everyone getting involved in this world that is medicine, that you all learn for yourself. And that is to develop, number one, some sort of circle where you could share experiences that you've had with like-minded people that know what you're going through. Talk to your preceptors, ask for that debrief, but then take care of yourself afterwards. Like, I finished that shift, I got out of there at 12 and went home, I ate some dinner, felt pretty crummy for the rest of the day, but I went to the gym the next day early morning, because I didn't start work again until the next day in the afternoon. And it was getting in there and working out and going for a run that really distracted me and had my mind in a different space and thinking about different things and looking forward to what came next. And that's the important part, to not really dwell on the past. I like to think about it as, in the moment, you give it 100% of everything that you can and be present in that moment. When you're with the family, you're present in that moment. But then afterwards, there's no point in replaying that moment over and over again. Let the moment play out in real time and then leave it there. And that's what I've learned for myself to do in medicine. I think that it's one of the most important skills that you could develop in medicine, to be able to leave things where they are and go home, because you deserve that. You deserve the opportunity to go home at some point. And it's Friday night right now, and I am going home. I'm going home, and I'm gonna have an awesome weekend. And I hope that everyone watching this video, that you do the same. And I wish you all the best of luck, and I hope that if you've been in this situation already, that you've come through it and that you've developed supports and a network and resiliency strategies. And if you haven't, then hopefully something that I've said here today encourages you to talk about some of the feelings that are built up a little bit inside you. It sounds like a cliche, but I do a lot of work with the Movember charity, and that's going to start back up in 2 months, and focusing on the importance of health and mental health, especially with healthcare workers, I think is really important. That's why we're talking about this today. So I'm going to bring the glasses down, even though the sun's in my eye, but thank you guys all for listening. Good luck on your journeys, and see you all in the next one.